Checking out this interview with CEO Tomas of Codeable, co-founder. Well, he's not CEO, pair CEO, but co-founder Tomas, and I think he heads up the development department. Anyway, this is the first time I've given this interview a listen, so I'm going to go ahead and press play and let you guys follow along.
Hello and welcome to WordPress Marketing, the podcast which teaches you how to climb to the top of the WordPress business ladder from those who have already climbed it. I'm Joe Lobo, and today I'm joined by the co-founder and CTO of Codeable, Tomaž Zaman. Codeable is the #1 marketplace for WordPress freelancers. Tomaž explained to me how he got his first investment, how the company grew, how they attracted the most lucrative projects, and much more. So here I am with Tomaž Zaman, the co-founder of Codeable. Tomaž, thank you for joining us on WordPress Marketing.
Well, you're welcome.
And as you were alluding to before we started recording, you just come back from holiday with your kids. And one of the things I kind of wanted to know was what's your daily routine like now? Obviously, as a co-founder, I imagine you're very busy every day, and there's always a host of things that you need to do each day.
Yes, my days are quite hectic, to be honest, especially lately that the whole company is transitioning into a bit more. We use the term corporate, but we're not a big corporation. We're just a team of 19 people right now, but we're transitioning into a bit of hierarchy, if that's the right term. So basically, I'm just trying to help all the people transition successfully by taking away the mundane parts of their work. Like if I can help them with some databases or some basic code or whatnot, so they can focus on tasks, their tasks. That's what I do. So basically, every day brings something new, and there's no set schedule for me to work on. I mean, obviously, there is an overarching narrative that I stick to, but day to day, it may vary quite significantly. On one day, I'll help the marketing team. On the other day I'll help support. On third day I'll help the developers. So it depends on the day.
How many hours are you working a day as a rule?
That depends as well. Now that the company is a bit bigger and we have delegated, me and Per, some of the tasks to our employees, the hours are not that crazy. So I may work anywhere between 5 or 12 hours, depends on the day. Sometimes it takes to work on a weekend, especially if the servers misbehave, which is rare but does happen, or we have a nasty bug, then I'll pull an all-nighter, but those are extremely rare now. So yeah, it depends. Sometimes I'll work 3 hours because of family occupations or maybe traveling to conferences or whatnot. So it greatly varies, honestly. There isn't like an 8 to 9 hour schedule in my life.
I imagine back in 2012 when you first started Codeable, I imagine things were very different and you were working a lot longer hours. And I suppose my question is, how did you first come up with Codeable, and what was it like in those first initial months working on it?
Yes, so my career started in college when I approached my professor to make a website for the university I studied at here in Slovenia. And to my surprise, they said yes. And that's kind of how I got into web development. But soon, me and my wife, we got our first kids, twins. So we moved to a remote area here. And I struggled to get any work because the area is quite underdeveloped from a web perspective. So I found this beautiful world of online outsourcing services, one of which was called Elance at the time. So I started to work on some projects there, but quickly discovered that two problems. One, if you sell hours, you have a finite amount of them daily, weekly, or per whatever period. So that was the first issue. And the second was it really was a kind of cutthroat competition to win those projects, because some developers would bid really low as $4 an hour, which was something I couldn't afford to live off. After working for a couple of weeks, months on Elance, I luckily got a client that paid me well, treated me well, like didn't put some crazy milestones, like short milestones. He also had some issues on Elance. In particular, when he hired developers, he would have to sift through 50, even 100 of them sometimes for his, couple of grand worth projects, which was a huge time waster for him. So at some point in our 2-ish year relationship, I said, listen, I'm kind of fed up with this Elance, and I think we could do something better. And I'm a developer by trade, so why don't you take care of the business end of things, and I'll develop a platform. So if you want to join this business idea I have, I'll be more than happy to have you on board. And this person's name is Per Esbensen, and he's now my co-founder of Codeable. And the first, I would say, 2 years were really tough. We were basically broke. We were trying to fundraise, but even explaining to people what we were trying to do was hard for us, because we would either talk too much or not enough. And we probably pitched the idea to like 30 people. And it wasn't until we already launched our product, being completely broke, that some of the investors approached us and offered some money to help us move along. And we took some of it, and we are today where we are, a successful, profitable company.
Why do you think those first investors eventually said yes to you?
I would say because they saw perseverance in us. Like, we would work crazy hours. We would pitch to everyone that would listen to us. We would network as much as possible. At the same time, taking care of our families and still fly to conferences and different startup workshops. So they saw that we're going to do this, and we knew in our hearts that we're going to do this with or without them. So the biggest lesson here for me was that you will hear no from people at the beginning, and the more you persevere, the more people will change their minds. And that's the name of the game, I think, now that I've been in this for that long.
I guess one of the things people like yourself, entrepreneurs, always remember is that first customer. Do you remember the first project that you got for Codeable, and what happened with it?
Honestly, I don't remember the very first project, but it was relatively easy in retrospective to get the first customers, because what we did is we reached out, even before we had a product, we reached out to WooThemes, which are the people behind WooCommerce. Obviously, well, now it's owned by Automatic, but back in the day, it was by a company from Cape Town, South Africa, called WooThemes. And we approached them and asked basically one question, and that question was, do you provide support, as in extended support, to the customers who buy your themes? And the answer was no. So our follow-up question is, would you send those people to a platform that would have X amount of pre-screened developers, and we would guarantee that the work that they would do would be of the highest quality possible? And the answer to that was, of course, yes. So when we launched, we already had one of the biggest names in the industry at the time sending us clients. So we basically earned our first $14, I think it was, on the third day after launching the company. And those $14, that I do remember, and we were ecstatic, happy. We were jumping in the air over $14, but it was a huge milestone for us and one worthy of celebrating, I think.
What did you learn exactly from those experiences with your first projects that put you in good stead for getting future work?
The importance of customer support, I would say, and the importance of community, because many not many. I would say all of our competitors, it's kind of every person for themselves scenario, whereas we really try to nurture our community of developers, of people that provide and do the work. We think of them, or we want them to think of each other as colleagues rather than competitors, and it worked wonders for us. Like, we still go to we go to WordCamp Europe or WordCamp US every year, and we host a dinner party for them. This year in Berlin we had 100 people coming, so 100 of our experts that provide work on the platform came to the Codeable Experts Dinner in Berlin, and it was, my heart was literally filled with joy, pride, gratitude, humility even, because all these people came together, had a dinner, had a couple of drinks. So yeah, the power of community in general is something that people don't recognize fast enough. And I think that half of the work for us was done by WordPress itself, because WordPress is good in bringing the community together, outside of Codeable.
Would you say the word of mouth was an important factor then in your company's growth at the start?
Yes, it was by a huge margin. I would say that word of mouth is by far the most important thing, because when many people talk about you, it spreads outwards very fast. And we still have, because we've grown, we have this network effect that people like, and I'm talking the provider side of things on Codeable, so our experts, they started to bring their friends who they could vouch for to Codeable, and people started to apply to our online form so much that we had to take it down because we couldn't process all the applications. And I think the reason for that is as well because not the word of mouth of Codeable itself, but the word of mouth of Codeable community, how people treat each other, how we, the core team, treat our experts, how we treat our clients, what the standard, like the high standard of communication, of work, and of course the high standard of pay as well. So all of this combined creates a good, I would say, word of mouth / networking effect.
Were there, especially in the early days, were there any mistakes that you made or anything you did that you used to improve your service further and helped you out in the long term?
Yes, I would outline two things here probably. One was that we made the application unnecessarily overcomplicated. It wasn't that overcomplicated because it was just me and another developer working on it. So we had very limited resources back in the day. But yeah, we made some features unusable or ununderstandable for our clients. So it made it difficult for them to easily hire someone. And that goes into my second mistake, which was that started Codeable with the idea of people helping other people on small fixes, because that's what I've done in my career, right? So I was, in a sense, scratching my itch when I would provide a small fix for somebody for, let's say, $60 or $100, right? So that was our starting point. But now we've grown significantly, and people have come to us posting projects north of $100,000 now, right? So the problem here is, while it's a good one to have, but it's still a problem nonetheless, is that our app was not equipped to handle that volume, or even the wording itself was, kind of implying that people should post small projects. And even after we did a couple of client surveys, we still discovered a lot of our clients think of us as a place to solve their small issues, which is not the case anymore, at least for 5 years now. So we're trying to fix that issue as we go with wording inside the application, with some features, with our website and whatnot.
So how did you go about changing that in the long term? Because as you said, you go on Codeable now and you see a lot of big, high-paying projects. So what approach did you make to make sure that happened?
Well, we first thing changed all the occurrences of the word task, because we have a lot of them in our app, in our emails, on our website. We had a lot of them anyway. So we replaced the word task with project, because that kind of implies that a project can be of any size as opposed to a task, which is usually a smaller one, right? However, the big step that we're taking right now is that we're doing a complete rebrand of the company. It's not public yet. It's not out yet. It will be this year, not giving any dates yet, but it will hopefully convey the message of what we do much more accurately.
So in those early days, when you were getting feedback from your clients, what were the overriding sort of points that they made to you that you used to improve your service further?
Well, what we mostly asked for was the application structure, as in how easy it is to post a project, and furthermore, how easy or difficult, for that matter, is to communicate with your developer, because our platform does support real-time chat. It always had. So we would ask them about the usability of the application. And this is something I would encourage everyone that does any kind of app development, do it sooner even. As soon as you can, run the prototypes with some people that need to be in a potential customers groups, quote unquote. So by far the most feedback that we got was not understanding the process flow of, submitting the project, getting an estimate, how the estimation works, and then how to hire, and then how to communicate, and how to get the work delivered. So I think this expectation management process is something that we neglected for far too long. So how do you teach people how the process through your application will go, and at the same time how to make it as short as possible? But there's also a catch there. Like if it's too short, then you make it too easy for people that don't necessarily convert that well, right? So you make it easy for not necessarily spammers, but people that don't have the budgets, just kind of trying to see how much something costs, but don't have any intentions to pay and whatnot. So yeah, it's a balance, and we're still working on it. I don't have a solution, because it's not something you get done. As your company grows, so do your customers evolve or change, or you attract new ones, bigger ones from different cultures or segments. So this is, I would say, a never-ending story. We're still, even yesterday we launched a test on our application of how people put in their timelines, their budgets and whatnot. So yeah, it's an ever-evolving process, and the important part is that you quickly do, this implement, test, learn cycle.
Well, you mentioned spammers and people who have no intention of paying for contracts. How did you guys detect, or what are the warning signs that tell you that maybe that some contracts are not trustworthy compared to other ones?
It really depends. There is no silver bullet here. Of course, we had more than 100,000 projects posted on the platform now, so it's getting easier and easier for us to recognize those. But it's usually, a mix of their project brief. How do they describe their project? Usually, if they're overly confident in their wording, but then provide a budget that is not reflective of that brief, that's usually our first kind of warning sign. If somebody says, hey, this should be really easy for somebody that knows what they're doing, right? I mean, people come to us because they don't know how to do something. And if they say that this should be easy or simple or fast or cheap, or, those are the phrases / words that we kind of look for. And we manually evaluate every project just to see, and we assign a viability flag on it. So how viable is it? And we're getting more and more accurate with this, the more data we have, honestly. But it's still a very manual process. And even then, some projects slip through our fingers. And then there's where our community of experts come in, and they usually flag the project as in this is spam, or take it down, or something's wrong, or whatever. That's the beauty of the community, that even if something slips through your fingers, you have people that catch that and report it.
So on the other end of that scale, obviously you want to avoid the spammers, but you want to attract the best projects, the most lucrative ones. So what do you do to ensure that the best quality projects appear on Codeable?
First, we try to partner with some of the companies that share some of our values or most of our values, and provide the extended support as we did with Woo themes for these companies. So we already know, for example, that some of these companies have great clients. So partnering with these companies is really a natural step for us and for them, and we get great clients from the get-go. That would be number one. Number two would be to explain, and as I said, we're still working on it, and hopefully the new brand will convey that much more successfully, is the sales/marketing side of things. Well, primarily marketing, which, the first driver of it is our website. So the new website, we're kind of hoping working on it hard, in fact, will convey the message of what we do, and more importantly, to whom we want to do it much more successfully. But we'll see. We'll run tests. We already improved the existing site with this in mind. The results are promising, so that's why we decided to go into a rebrand. So hopefully we'll get there eventually. But yeah, it's an ever-evolving process, the branding part, I guess.
So on the subject of the website, how did you identify that as a way for you to improve further the quality of the projects you get on Codeable?
Speaking with clients, as in speaking in person with them, not even, well, we did some remote interviews, but we did a lot of them in person as well. So we would do user testing for our website, not just the application. So we would show them the website, we would give them a particular task on a paper, ask them to try and complete that task, and also share their thoughts along the process with us. So that's how, for example, we discovered that people perceived us as a small task bug fixing company, rather than a whole project providing a platform that connects great developers with clients that need them. So I would say by far talking to people is the most valuable thing you can do in listening to feedback. And also one step that was unintentional but happened anyway, which it was good, was providing support through the live chat on our site. We would get a lot of pre-sale questions there, and through those questions we discovered what messages we didn't give out on the site, or what we didn't explain well enough, and because those questions through the customer support very quickly started to repeat themselves. So people would constantly ask similar questions. So we would get a thread out of those and try to address, well, not one thread, we got multiple, and we would try to address them through various changes, both to the website and our application.
Something you mentioned that I find quite interesting, because it seems that all the successful companies, such as yourself, emphasize the importance of it, is talking to your clients, is communication with them. So I suppose a fairly basic question of mine is, how do you do it? How do you communicate with your clients?
You reach out to them. Well, first, if you provide a live chat support to them, then they'll reach out to you, obviously. And from that alone, if you're the shy type, I guess, then just providing a live chat button on your website is a good first step to give people a means to reach out to you, and they will reach out, and they will have a lot of meaningful questions. So it's very important to listen to those questions, and not only answer them on a per client basis or per prospective client basis, but on a wider one, meaning to make an FAQ part on your website, or explaining on the landing page if the question is really important of it or if it's asked often. That would be my first thing. Then second would be to find people in your vicinity, go to them, buy them a drink, and do some proper user testing. There's loads of books on that topic, and it's usually not that hard. It takes 5 people. That's all it takes to get a couple of those major aha moments for you as the company owner, as in what the people struggle with on your service or your website or your application. All it takes is 5 people spending less than an hour with everyone. So my first suggestion would be read a book, like some basic book, because it's not rocket science, user testing, at least initially. When you're small, some basic knowledge and talking to people in real life does 80%. Of course, once you evolve and grow what you do and you have a customer base, you then send out surveys to people or schedule calls or do some usertesting.com, I think it's called, as in remote user testing that somebody else does for you. But starting out, A, provide an amazing support. You'll get tons of feedback, and B, just talk to people in real life. Talk to 5 people every half a year, and you'll have a lot of work to do for the coming years even.
And besides communicating with the clients, I know something that you guys at Codeable pride yourself on is your level of customer service.
Yes.
So something I'm intrigued to know is, how do you approach it day by day to ensure it stays at such a high standard?
We have a relatively small, all things considered, support team, but at the same time it's also big relatively to the size of the company. I think we have 7 people or 8 people on support right now, and what we do is we keep a book, not a book, it's a GitHub repository, but we call it a black book of how certain things are handled, because of course with 100,000 plus projects we've learned a lot, and there's a lot of repetition. There's rarely anything new these days that would surprise us. So what we did along the way, and I must thank my partner, co-founder Per, for that, because he was our first customer support person for quite some time. And what he did was he kept track of all the possible scenarios and did, I would say, manual A/B approaches, or he did what he thought was right, but then also documented his encounters with clients, with disputes, with refunds, also with people being thankful, with sending t-shirts and thank you letters and whatnot. And he kept a track of it, and we eventually produced what we call a customer support black book, which now is mandatory for any new customer support hire, not only to read through it, but to understand it and then follow it with a mentor, which is usually our head of support, for a couple of weeks when they start. So there's a lot of content in there by now, obviously, but it's good content. New hires are usually amazed by how well things are documented there, how to proceed in certain situations.
In the early days, were there any sort of methods you used or anything that you learned that you had to change drastically when it came to customer service?
No, not really. I'll explain why. Because Per was always, like with me, a very talkative person. So for him, it wasn't hard to talk to people. And that proved to be the best thing, and still is. Just sometimes we would avoid a refund, and let me clarify, we have very little refund. Like out of 1,500 projects a month, maybe 1 or 2 refund, not percent, 1 or 2 as a number refunds. So sometimes the expectations were mismanaged, and all it takes is to listen to the person that's complaining, and the problem goes away, right? It's not even, you don't even need to do anything. They'll just be grateful that you took your time, an hour of it maybe, and listen to them, and then the issue will be kind of resolved on its own. So this is where we're good at, talking to people. But there is a catch. When you have a bigger company, obviously your resources are limited. So then you have to become better, and we're still working on it, on focusing on which conversations to have as opposed to which ones to avoid.
As you said, you guys are very successful in terms of the completed projects and customer satisfaction. When you speak to people, especially the best, most valuable projects, why do you think they ultimately choose to go with Codeable?
Trust. Definitely trust. Like, one thing we emphasize on Codeable and always have, and we even test this as a pre-screening process for our experts, is their communication skills. I can pretty much guarantee it that when things go wrong, it's not because our developer didn't deliver the code or didn't know how to write the code or solve a technical issue. It's never about technical issues. It's always a people problem. It's always a miscommunication problem. So what we do is we put a lot of emphasis on our experts to be upfront, candid, timely with with our shared clients, so to speak. And if they don't stick to it, we kick them out eventually. Like, we try to teach them. We try to give, point some articles, or we even have a black book for our experts that they have to follow, and a lot of scenarios are described there as well. However, if they don't stick to the highest possible standard of communication, then they're out. And this, I think, brings not only new customers, but brings the old customers back and builds trust, is that they're always upfront with what's going on with their project. And secondly, that we're always around. So even if their project, the developer goes missing or something happens, because life is life. We do get, somebody gets sick or they have a family emergency, they don't get back to their client. So what we do is we reach out to our expert by phone. Hey, is everything okay? They'll say, family emergency, will explain it to the client. So I think that peace of mind is what we give to our clients, and the peace of mind makes them come back for more. Even when we're not the cheapest service around, they're happy to pay the premium because of what we do or how we do it.
And what percentage of your clients would you say are repeat customers?
More than half.
And how important is that for your business model?
I guess I would say it's equally important than new clients. We're focusing on both, so the acquisition and the retention. However, retention is easy, relatively speaking, because they already have a good experience with us. So getting them back when they have issues is not a huge deal for us. We don't have to advertise to them. We maybe reach out once in a while to remind them we're still here. And that's about it, right? But the acquisition part, getting new clients, is the more time-consuming and costly endeavor.
One of the things you mentioned is when it comes to your developers, is the importance of communication. And I know that with Codeable, you have a very rigorous process when it comes to identifying the best developers for you. How do you attract them, and how do you actually try and narrow down to make sure that only the best work for you?
We have several tools, and we have a part of customer support team that does it. We had a form. I think we still have a form because I'm not involved in that process as much. It's a standard application form that are the developers that want to work on Codeable just use to apply to work on Codeable. But that form is the first test. So we check how the form is filled out, whether the grammar is correct. Doesn't need to be perfect, but we need to see that their English is sufficient and good, because most of our clients are from English-speaking countries, so it makes sense for us to check that. We also check their portfolio if they attach it. We check their open source contributions if they have it. So there's a lot of work involved even in screening their application forms without actually talking to them yet. And then they get either denied because we were like the application form text didn't pass, or they get into the second round. And then we do several interviews, one of which is pair programming. The second one is a communication interview. And even Pair, my partner, then finally kind of welcomes the ones that pass all the 3 tests into the Codeable family, we call it. And then it's not over yet. We monitor all new experts for about a month, and we try to do our best to make them successful, because it takes a bit of different mindset to be a Codeable expert, as in we are a platform, but we behave like an agency. So Per, the CEO, he will call experts if they do something wrong. He will explain to them what they did wrong. He will explain to them how to improve or what courses to take, how to educate themselves or correct their behavior, whatever. So we do a lot of management of people, of experts on our side. So if a new expert that passed all the tests doesn't do well in an environment where he kind of has a boss in a way, then they usually don't succeed. But those that succeed in the first week stay with us for years. We still have some experts that started with us like 7 years ago, and they're still active on the platform, and they still make money on the platform, and they're basically full-time working through Codeable.
Given that you have such a high quality of developers, do you think that plays a large factor in the fact that you do get these lucrative projects coming to Codeable?
Yes, increasingly so, honestly. Like we started to attract even some of the, I know they would appreciate it, so I won't name names, but celebrity developers, right? Those that contribute to the WordPress core or are very active in some WordPress related communities or others. We started to attract the big names in the industry on the developer side. I think that kind of boosts our image. Like if we have several, not only one or two, but plenty of elite developers on the platform, then I think people perceive us as being, like higher. However, it's also just within the WordPress, we call it the bubble, as in we're inside the bubble. So meaning that a client that needs or have their website done with WordPress, they don't really mostly care. They don't even know. Like if they meet a celebrity developer, I'm doing air quotes here. So if they get a celebrity developer working for them, high chances are they won't even know because they don't care and they're not in the WordPress, let's call it ecosystem that they would know. We feel good about it, but the developer themselves, they usually don't think of themselves as celebrities. But it does elevate our position in the WordPress bubble ecosystem, and that does kind of sip outwards, right? Because somebody from the WordPress will be asked by somebody that's not in WordPress, hey, I have a site on WordPress, where do I get it fixed, upgraded, migrated, blah, blah. And of course, the first thing it'll come to mind is they'll say, hey, you should try Codeable.
You mentioned before about with your developers about the importance of them having a grasp of the English language. I imagine given the size of Codeable, you must get projects from all around the world. Do you need to offer different approaches based on different languages and different markets to try and attract the best projects from all around the world?
No, not yet, I guess. But that yet is far in the future because the majority of our customers comes from the US or let's say Western EU or Western countries in general, where the standard of living is a bit higher than elsewhere. So, and our pricing reflects that. So the high quality of our services, of people, of prices for that matter, kind of makes us interesting mostly to the Western markets, which are mostly English proficient. At least they, understand it and can write some basics. We do get some clients from other countries that post their projects in languages we don't understand, but it's usually not a problem because we have experts from all around the world as well, and somebody will pick it up almost always, and then there'll be a natural choice for that client. But for now, we don't have any plans to expand out of English language, just because I think we haven't gotten to a position yet. We don't have the majority of possible market, or we're not even close for that matter. So not yet.
And speaking of multilingual clients, I know that you guys obviously work with us at WPML and have a partnership, a successful one. How do you guys identify the best companies to work with for your partnerships that will see you getting the best paid jobs?
Meeting them in person. Meeting them in person is underrated. We go to WordCamps a lot, obviously, and we talk to people and we click with people, and then we say, listen, we should totally partner up. And they're usually for it. That was our main kind of driver for quite some time. Now we're getting more into the kind of cold calling area, not calling, but emailing people, but they've already either heard of us or met us or met one of us at a conference. So it's usually, and the people that advertise or have booths at WordCamps are all nice people, and it's very fun, friendly to meet them every once in a while. So I guess it's just a natural thing for us to talk to them and then at some point offer a partnership, because they, like almost everyone, needs some help from time to time. So if we can get ourselves ingrained in people's minds that Codeable is the place where you get help, regardless of how simple or complex it is, then that's a huge win for us.
You mentioned at the start the importance of word of mouth. I imagine now, given the size of Codeable, things have changed, and you don't just have word of mouth, but you can use other strategies to promote yourself. What have you found are the best marketing channels to get Codeable out there?
That perfectly goes from your previous question, and that is partnerships. We've discovered by far the most effective solution in terms of promoting Codeable is through partners, because our website, our current one, our old brand, let's call it, doesn't convey the message of who we are and what we do that well. Well, it does now, but that wasn't always the case. So the partners would do a lot of our work for us, basically, because what we discovered in all of our partners pretty much is that they don't offer what we offer, which is perfect. They offer their core service, which is either selling plugins or themes or providing hosting, but they don't do any custom development. Nobody has a central repository of high quality developers for WordPress. Everybody knows someone, but there's not one single place you could send people to. So our promise of quality makes it even more, and our stats, which we share with our partners, makes it even more appealing for them to have a reliable partner that they can hand off their clients to, and maintain a high level of confidence that their client will be happy. So by far, I would say the partnerships have worked for us the best. We tried pay-per-click advertising, Facebook, Google, spent tens of thousands of dollars on those. We didn't really get any significant results. Like by far, partnerships, hands down, is what works for us the most.
Tomaž, you've given me a great deal of your time, and I appreciate it, and I've learned a lot as well. So thank you for joining us here at WordPress Marketing. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure.
Thank you to my guest, Tomaž Zaman from Codeable. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button wherever you are listening to this podcast so you don't miss out on future episodes. I'm Joe Lobo, and I'll see you next time.